What if the greatest mind of the 20th century, the man who gifted us the very blueprint of our electrical world, was trying to tell us something more? What if his ultimate obsession wasn't simply power, but the very nature of reality itself? This is the untold story whispered in the high-frequency hum of a Tesla coil, a secret encoded in the very structure of alternating current. Nikola Tesla was a prophet of energy, yet his most radical discovery wasn't about what power is, but where it comes from. He spoke of vibrations, of the universe as a sea of limitless energy and ether. This is the journey to understand how the invisible laws of resonance make your reality negotiable. Tesla's entire world was built upon the principle that everything is frequency. This is not a metaphor. It is the fundamental law of the cosmos, echoed in the ancient Hermetic principle. Nothing rests. Everything moves. Everything vibrates. The core insight is this: the difference between a dense physical object and a fleeting thought, between matter and mind, is merely a difference in the rate of vibration. The reality you experience, the job, the relationships, the health, is simply a manifestation collapsed from the ether, the omnipresent field of limitless potential. Tesla, like the ancient masters who spoke of the Akashic field, knew that this ether contains the blueprint of all possible realities. Modern quantum science echoes this through the concept of the zero-point field, a turbulent, energetic sea that fills the supposed vacuum of space. This field is the source. It is the canvas upon which all physical form is painted. Your consciousness, therefore, is not a passive viewer. It is an active resonant coil. The frequency of your dominant thoughts and emotions determines which specific reality blueprint you pull from the ether and collapse into physical form. If you resonate with lack, the field mirrors lack. If you resonate with certainty and completion, the field mirrors that completion. The ether doesn't judge. It simply aligns. This understanding forces us to confront a fundamental failure of perception. We are conditioned to believe in a linear, solid world where matter is the cause and mind is the effect. Tesla's work demands a radical inversion. Mind is the cause, and matter is the effect. The visible reality, which seems so solid and unyielding, is merely a shadow projected by the frequency you broadcast into the ether. If the projection is inadequate, the failure lies not in the world, but in the tuning of your internal coil. The rejection of the ether in the early 20th century was one of the greatest conceptual errors in modern scientific history. The prevailing models demanded a mechanical, tangible explanation for everything. But for Tesla, as for the philosophers like Plotinus, who detailed the unity of the soul, the existence of a pervasive, immaterial medium was necessary for instantaneous connection. Without the ether, entanglement, the phenomenon where two particles instantly affect each other regardless of distance, is a magical anomaly. With the ether, it is simply a shared medium reacting to the same resonant wave. This ether, this field of unmanifested potential, is the library of all knowledge, past and future. It holds the blueprints of all possible inventions, all possible timelines, and all possible use. Tesla described his visions of machines not as invention, but as reception. He was simply tuning his mind's frequency to the point in the ether where the completed, perfect version of the coil or generator already existed. He was, in effect, pulling a future reality into his present consciousness. This phenomenon is perfectly explained by esoteric traditions that speak of the nous, or the universal mind, which contains all intelligence and all form. Your mind is not separate from this nous. It is a localized vortex within it. The power to shift reality, therefore, is the power to willingly and knowingly engage with the nous via controlled frequency. It is the ability to bypass the noise of the physical senses and lock onto the signal of the higher, implicate order, the hidden dimension where all things are whole and connected. Tesla's fixation on the numbers 3, 6, and 9 was not superstition. It was an attempt to mathematically define the structural constants of this universal field. He believed these numbers represented the high-frequency dimensional bridges that govern energy flow and bypass the linear constraints of the material world. We can interpret the profound meaning of these numbers through the lens of esoteric geometry and flow dynamics. The frequency of 3, creation. The 3 is the first step toward form. It represents the trinity of dimensions necessary for manifestation: length, width, height, the essential tripod of existence, mind, body, spirit. In the process of the axion shift, 3 is the frequency of the initial intention, the decisive choice to engage a new probability stream. The frequency of 6, harmony. The 6 is the reflection and the balance point. It represents the harmony necessary between the internal frequency and the external world. In geometric terms, it is the hexagon, the structure most commonly found in nature's most efficient systems: honeycombs, crystals. It is the frequency that ensures the alignment of your emotions, the internal engine, with your intellect, the external focus. Without 6, the intention of 3 becomes chaotic. The frequency of 9, completion. The 9 is the most crucial, the omnipotent constant, representing completion and wholeness. In numerology, the 9 is the constant of the universe. Any number multiplied by it returns to itself, signifying universal integration and the ultimate return to source. To tune to the frequency of 9 is to operate from the state of the wish fulfilled. Tesla understood that to achieve a shift, to experience a new, desired parallel reality, you must align your consciousness with the frequency of the perfect 9. You do not labor toward a future outcome. You tune into the frequency of the reality that is already complete within the implicate order. The perceived struggle is merely the friction caused by operating outside of this perfect numerical alignment. Striving is the frequency of 8 or 7. Completion is the effortless frequency of 9. The process of shifting is known as the axion shift, the conscious, intentional act of frequency matching that moves your awareness from one probability stream to another. Quantum theory, particularly the many worlds interpretation, suggests that every possible outcome exists in a parallel timeline. Your body is not splitting. Your consciousness is simply aligning with a different branch of the universal wave function. This shifting is achieved through 3 key interlocking mechanics. Consciousness as the collapser, the observer effect. The universe remains a wave of infinite potential until your consciousness observes it. The moment you focus your attention, especially through emotional certainty, you force a single timeline to collapse into your experience. The other possibilities do not cease to exist. They simply become unobservable to your current fixed state of awareness. You are actively choosing your branch of the multiverse by where you place your focus. Emotion as the transmitter, resonant alignment. Your deepest emotional states are the genuine high-frequency transmitters. When mystics like Neville Goddard spoke of the imaginal act, they were teaching people to generate the feeling of the wish fulfilled. This feeling is not just a pleasant thought. It is a precisely calibrated emotional signature that acts as the exact frequency match for the desired reality. It is a broadcast of 9-frequency certainty into the ether. Belief is the filter, the subconscious gate. Your deeply ingrained belief system acts as the final and most rigid filter on the ether. It is the agreement your subconscious mind has made about what is possible. If you hold a fundamental belief that success is hard or that you are undeserving, your consciousness will filter out the effortless, prosperous potential, even when consciously broadcasting a high-frequency signal. The axion shift requires overriding this old filter with the absolute, unwavering certainty that the desired reality is not coming to you, but is already here. The perceived delay in manifestation is simply the time it takes for your slow, dense physical reality, the explicate order, to catch up to the instantaneous, light-speed change you have made in your internal frequency, the implicate order. This lagging effect is the only thing separating you from the reality you desire. This realization is the key to mastering time. Time, as commonly perceived, is an illusion of separation, a measurement of the gap between the implicate blueprint and the explicate reality. By maintaining the frequency of completion, 9, you effectively compress that gap, accelerating the restructuring of your physical world. The principles Tesla demonstrated with high-frequency electricity were, in many ways, the material confirmation of ancient, esoteric cosmology. Tesla's work on resonance was the engineering equivalent of what Gnostics, Hermeticists, and Rosicrucians understood as the chain of being, the cascade of vibration that descends from the pure spiritual source into the dense material world. The foundational texts of Hermeticism speak of the corpus hermeticum, detailing the structure of the cosmos not as randomly assembled matter, but as an ordered, vibrational thought projected by the universal mind. When Tesla sought to harness the boundless energy of space, he was searching for the physical manifestation of this divine thought, the raw mind stuff that forms the basis of all reality. This link is crucial because it bridges the gap between mechanical invention and metaphysical mastery. The ancients believed that control over the lower planes, the physical, was achieved only through command of the higher planes, the mental and energetic. Tesla's success wasn't just technical, it was a testament to his mental discipline, his ability to manipulate the energetic blueprints before engaging with the physical world. He was, intentionally or not, practicing the great work, the mastery of consciousness over condition. To understand your role in the axion shift, you must first understand your axion core. We use this term to describe the part of your consciousness that is not subject to the chaos of the lower frequencies. Doubt, fear, lack. In the language of mystics, this is the Christ consciousness or the true self. In the language of quantum theory, it is the fundamental, stable point of observation that remains coherent despite the chaotic superposition of the quantum field. The axion core is the unmoving center. When you attempt a reality shift from a place of emotional need or desperation, you are broadcasting a chaotic frequency. This is the signal of lack, which aligns you with a timeline of continued struggle. But when you operate from the axion core, the place of certainty and completion, the frequency of 9, your consciousness becomes a stable oscillator. This stable core has the power to override the habitual, limiting frequencies you inherited from your environment. Your life is not being dictated by current events. It is being dictated by the inertia of your past frequency broadcast. The axion core is the lever that breaks that inertia. By finding the profound, quiet certainty that the desired reality is already true, you engage the core of your being to force a quantum lock onto the new dimensional stream. The illusion of time is the greatest barrier to fully accepting the axion shift. We perceive time as a river flowing in one direction, carrying us helplessly from the past to the future. Tesla's insights into AC power and frequency hinted at something far more fluid, a cyclical, multi-layered reality. In the higher dimensional reality of the ether, the implicate order, time is not linear, it is simultaneous. The past, present, and all possible futures exist now, superimposed in the zero-point field. When you successfully execute a shift, when you perfectly match the frequency of the completed reality, you are not waiting for the future to arrive. You are instantaneously experiencing the future in the eternal now. The time delay you perceive between the moment of intention and the moment of physical manifestation is not a physical law. It is the lag between the instantaneous change in your consciousness, your mental frequency, and the required gradual restructuring of dense, low-frequency matter. The physical world, the explicate order, must literally resequence itself to align with the new, high-frequency command you have given. This resequencing manifests as synchronicity, those uncanny, perfect coincidences. They are not random chance. They are the ether's subtle correction mechanism, the universe bending the timeline to bring the necessary people, resources, and events into your path to match your new frequency. Learning to trust and act upon these synchronicities is the final step in dissolving the illusion of linear time. The axion shift is not an act of magic, but the application of universal law. It is the simple recognition that the cosmos operates on deterministic, predictable principles, regardless of human belief. The esoteric traditions organize these into the 7 Hermetic principles, and Tesla's work validated several of them on the physical plane. The 3 most relevant to the dimensional shift are the law of mentalism. This is the foundation of the entire process. The all is mind, the universe is mental. This means that the ultimate reality of all form, physical, emotional, and spiritual, originates as a thought in the universal mind, the ether nous. When you shift your dominant thought and feeling, you are utilizing the highest law, changing the master pattern before it manifests in the lower physical plane. Your thought is the frequency command. The ether is the receiving intelligence. The law of vibration. We have established that everything moves and vibrates. The practical meaning of this law is that you can deliberately raise or lower your own vibrational rate. The difference between the timeline where you struggle and the timeline where you thrive is nothing more than a few degrees of vibrational change. Frustration is a low, turbulent frequency that attracts friction. Certainty is a high, smooth frequency that attracts effortless synchronicity. The shift is simply the disciplined act of ascending your vibrational rate to match the desired parallel dimension. The law of correspondence. As above, so below. As below, so above. This law explains why the shift works. The macrocosm, the universe of infinite timelines, is reflected in the microcosm, your internal state. The state of perfection and completion that exists in the ether, above, must, by law, be reflected in your physical experience, below, provided your internal consciousness is aligned to receive that flawless pattern. Your immediate, intimate reality is always an exact correspondence of your persistent inner feeling. Tesla, observing the mechanical universe, grasped these principles implicitly. His work on alternating current, AC, was the physical expression of oscillation and rhythm, how energy moves cyclically rather than linearly. He realized that the human experience, too, is cyclical, constantly oscillating between different poles of probability. The axion shift is the technique for locking the oscillator onto the high, stable frequency of your desired outcome. We often mistakenly believe that the greatest power in creation is thought. However, Tesla's work shows that thought is merely the blueprint. The emotional signature is the energy source, the raw, high-voltage power that drives the frequency match. Emotion dictates the intensity and purity of the broadcast into the ether. A simple visualization, if accompanied by a lukewarm or doubtful emotion, is a weak signal that dissolves into the background noise of the universe. Conversely, a brief, intensely felt sense of gratitude, joy, or absolute certainty is a high-amplitude wave that cuts through all resistance. The emotion of certainty is the purest fuel for the axion shift. It is the one emotional signature that is impervious to doubt because it operates from the truth of the already complete, the 9 frequency. You are not projecting hope. You are broadcasting knowledge. This feeling of certainty instantly alters your relationship with the infinite probability wave, moving you out of the sea of potential and onto the single, solid ground of realized experience. This shift in emotional signature is what Alice Bailey referred to as the expansion of the subtle bodies, the movement from the turbulent emotional plane to the clear, organized mental plane. By prioritizing the feeling of certainty, you are essentially cleaning the lens of your consciousness, allowing the pure blueprint from the implicate order to project onto your visible world without distortion. The understanding and application of the axion shift marked the transition from being a seeker of truth to being a knower, an active participant in the creation of reality. This is the great work of consciousness, the final stage of self-mastery, recognized across Rosicrucian, alchemical, and yogic traditions. The ultimate goal is to dissolve the perceived separation between your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and the universal mind. When these three are perfectly synchronized, when your conscious intention, 3, your emotional harmony, your 6, and your subconscious belief, 9, are aligned, you become the fully operational resonant coil. The great work is the continuous discipline of maintaining this high-frequency alignment, regardless of the lagging, contradictory evidence of the physical world. The world of form will always be a mirror of the past. Your power lies in knowing that the true reality is the perfect image you are projecting now. We must return to the most deceptive aspect of our reality, the illusion of linear time. Tesla's intuitive grasp of energy flow and AC current gave him an insight into time that defied the Newtonian models of his day. He recognized time not as a one-way arrow, but as a vast, multi-layered frequency band, a perpetual now. In the dimensional structure that Tesla accessed through deep mental reception, the future is not something you labor toward. It is a fixed, already existing location on the map of potential. The difference between the you who is struggling and the you who is sovereign is merely a matter of spatial location in the ether, not a point in chronological time. This simultaneous existence is the philosophical bedrock of the axion shift. When you execute the shift by aligning your frequency with the feeling of completion, you are not engaging in future tense projection. You are engaging in eternal now perception. You are moving your point of awareness, your axion core, to the spatial location of the completed reality. The great mystics and visionaries, from Rumi to Eckhart Tolle, have always pointed to the power of the present moment. That moment is the only gateway out of the perceived struggle. The past is a dead frequency. The future is a frequency that is already alive. By dwelling in the feeling of the now realized desire, you are escaping the linear trap and operating from the multidimensional truth of the cosmos. The universe rewards those who act from certainty, because certainty is the highest truth of the eternal now. To fully appreciate how effortless this shift can be, we must consider the universe not as a collection of separate objects, but as a grand hologram, a concept given modern scientific weight by theories rooted in the study of black holes and information physics. The holographic principle suggests that the three-dimensional reality we see is merely information encoded on a distant two-dimensional surface. This is the ultimate metaphysical mirror. In a hologram, every tiny fragment contains the information necessary to reconstruct the entire image. Your consciousness, your individual axion core, is that fragment. The external world is not the primary reality. It is the reflection of your inner state. When you change the film in the projector, your belief and emotional signature, the entire movie, your physical reality, must change to match. The outside world is therefore always a secondary phenomenon. To try and force the external world to change without altering the internal broadcast is akin to scrubbing the projector screen instead of changing the image being projected onto it. This principle forces a profound self-accountability. If you perceive struggle, chaos, or lack in your external life, it is a direct and mathematically accurate feedback loop of the frequency you are broadcasting internally. The axion shift is the process of deliberately and meticulously cleaning your inner lens until the perfect, completed image, the frequency of 9, is the only one being projected. The moment that internal broadcast becomes consistent, the law of correspondence guarantees the holographic image must adjust. The power to maintain the high frequency of the axion shift requires a unique form of discipline, not the discipline of brute effort, but the discipline of intentional attention. Doubt, worry, and fear are not moral failures. They are simply frequency contaminants. They introduce static into the broadcast, causing the new timeline to flicker and fade. The masters of the great work, the individuals who seem to effortlessly draw their desires into their reality, are simply masters of this internal maintenance. They practice what can be called frictionless flow. They recognize a negative thought, not as a reflection of reality, but as a memory of the old, discarded timeline. They do not fight the thought. Fighting it engages its frequency. Instead, they acknowledge it as a ghost of the past, and instantly and effortlessly shift their attention back to the feeling of the wish fulfilled, the 9 frequency. This continuous, conscious retuning is the great work in action. It is the steady maintenance of the resonant coil, ensuring the purity and power of the broadcast. By mastering your attention, you master the very process of quantum collapse. You cease to be tossed about by the chaotic wave of potential and become the stable knower who determines the single, coherent particle of experience. The final realization of the Tesla code is that the universe is not a machine to be tamed, but a musical instrument to be played, and your consciousness is the tuning fork. To further validate Tesla's concept of the ether as a boundless information field, we turn to the idea of the morphic field, or the formative causation principle. This concept posits that self-organizing systems, from crystals and atoms to conscious beings, are governed by non-physical fields that act as Templates of information. The morphic field is a direct parallel to Tesla's idea of the ether. It suggests that once a specific form or action is achieved anywhere in the universe, or on Earth, a blueprint for that achievement is recorded in the field, making it easier for all future entities to replicate. When Tesla received the blueprints for his most complex inventions, he was not creating them ex nihilo. He was tapping into a higher morphic field that had already stored the perfected information. He was receiving the finished design, the 9 frequency. Your own consciousness, your individual axion core, is constantly interacting with this morphic field. Your limiting beliefs, the struggle, the lack, the doubt, are often not unique to you. They are inherited frequencies, residual patterns picked up from the collective field. The masses, operating on a low, chaotic frequency, create a persistent, dominant morphic field of limitation. The axion shift is, therefore, a deliberate act of morphic decoupling. By ascending your frequency to that of absolute certainty and focusing on the internal feeling of the wish fulfilled, you temporarily disengage from the restrictive collective field and tune into a higher order morphic resonance, the field of success, health, and sovereignty. This is the ultimate act of individuality and freedom. You are choosing to download your operating system from the divine blueprint rather than the outdated error-filled collective program. The power of frequency alignment is not confined to the metaphysical. It is wired into our biology. The body, composed of trillions of cells, is a vast, sophisticated resonant system. As Bruce Lipton's work suggests, our genes and cells are not solely controlled by the physical nucleus, but by the energetic signals from our environment, particularly the signals transmitted by our emotions and perceptions. Our DNA acts less like a fixed blueprint and more like a resonant antenna, constantly adjusting its function based on the electromagnetic and emotional frequencies we broadcast. When you operate from a low frequency, fear, chronic stress, your body's cells receive a signal of threat, leading to defensive, life-limiting behaviors at the cellular level. When you achieve the high, pure frequency of the axion shift, certainty, gratitude, your cells receive a signal of absolute safety, expansion, and flourishing. This high frequency initiates a cascade of self-repair and optimal genetic expression. The axion core, in this biological context, is the control center of this cellular broadcast. The sustained feeling of being whole, healthy, or abundant becomes the definitive external signal controlling the internal function of your biology. The physical body, being dense and slow, is merely the final canvas that reflects the purity of the internal broadcast. To shift your reality is to shift your health, your resilience, and your very biological expression by altering your fundamental emotional signature. The entire process is a self-sustaining quantum loop that Tesla intuitively mastered, and we must consciously engage. Implicate order. The ether holds infinite, simultaneous blueprints, the potential realities. Conscious input. Your focused attention, axion core, chooses a blueprint, the imaginal act. Emotional broadcast. Your intense emotional signature, the feeling of completion, 9 frequency, provides the massive energy required to lock in the choice. Explicate collapse. The quantum wave of potential collapses, and the physical reality rearranges itself via synchronicity to match the broadcast. Feedback loop. The newly manifested physical reality reinforces the original emotion, creating a stronger loop and locking the consciousness even more firmly into the desired timeline. Most people are caught in a negative quantum loop. They feel fear, low frequency, which collapses a negative reality, which then reinforces the fear. The axion shift is the deliberate, forceful injection of a positive feedback loop using certainty and gratitude as the initiating impulse, overriding the negative inertia and forcing the system toward the frequency of completion. The mastery of this loop is the ultimate technological breakthrough, one that requires no wires, no coils, and no generators, only the magnificent, uncorrupted power of human consciousness. The conscious use of the axion shift elevates the individual from a subject of fate to a sovereign creator. This philosophical transformation is the ultimate goal of esoteric wisdom. When the ancient philosopher Plato wrote of the world of forms, the perfect non-physical blueprints that exist outside of sensory reality, He was describing the implicate order of the ether. Every manifestation in your life is merely an imperfect shadow of a perfect form existing in the dimensional field. The sovereign individual, operating from the Axion core, chooses to bypass the imperfect shadows of their past reality and connect directly to the perfect form, the complete reality, the frequency of 9. This act of sovereignty demands absolute self-responsibility. There is no one to blame for the frequencies you broadcast. The world is operating with perfect integrity to the signal it receives. When you fully internalize this truth, external struggle ceases to hold power. You understand that every challenging circumstance is merely a piece of feedback, a signal indicating that a contaminating frequency, doubt, fear, worry, has crept back into the broadcast. The practice of the Axion shift is the daily reaffirmation of your spiritual independence. It is the realization that your entire external life is merely the product of your most persistent internal agreement. The truly sovereign being does not ask the world for permission to be happy, wealthy, or healthy. They simply broadcast the frequency of happiness, wealth, and health, compelling the world to respond by law. Tesla's ability to receive complex schematics was a testament to the power of imagination, which the mystics assert is not fantasy, but the very creative power of God localized within the individual. As William Blake declared, and as Neville Goddard taught, imagination is the actual substance of reality. The problem lies in confusing imagination with mere daydreaming. Daydreaming is passive. It is watching images unfold without emotional commitment. The creative act of the Axion shift, the imaginal act, is highly disciplined and intensely charged with the feeling of completion when you perfectly engage the 5 senses and the corresponding emotion of certainty within your imagination. You are not fabricating a future event. You are using your most potent, high-frequency tool to perceive an existing parallel reality. Imagination is the dimensional telescope of the Axion core. It is the mechanism by which your consciousness can perceive the unmanifested realities stored within the ether. The more real the experience feels, the stronger the resonant lock is established, forcing the quantum collapse. The genius of this approach is that it is effortless in the physical realm because the work is completed in the imaginal realm. By fully experiencing the reality of the completed wish internally, you discharge the emotional need to acquire it physically. This discharge of need removes resistance, friction, allowing the ether to effortlessly manifest the reflection. Ultimately, the mastery of the Axion shift leads to the dissolution of the illusion of the separate self. The ether, the zero-point field, and the universal mind are all names for the same boundless consciousness that you are part of. The true goal of the great work is not to manipulate reality for egoic gain, but to align the localized self, the Axion core, with the universal self. When your broadcast becomes so pure, so resonant with the frequency of completion, 9, you realize that the source of your desire and the source of your ability to manifest it are one and the same. This integration is the final step in dissolving fear. Fear only exists in the low frequency of separation, where you believe you are a finite being fighting a vast, indifferent universe. When you realize you are the universe, localized at a point of sovereignty, the need to struggle vanishes. You trust the universal flow because you recognize it as your own intention in motion. The Axion shift is the key to unlocking the true human potential, the ability to consciously and effortlessly choose our dimensional experience, realizing that we are and always have been the engineers of our own reality. The journey into the Tesla code leads us to a single, inescapable truth. The secret to controlling the external world is realizing that the external world is merely a reflection of your internal frequency. Tesla's true genius was not in hardware, but in understanding spiritual software. He proved that energy is ubiquitous and reality is negotiable. He showed us that the invisible world, the ether, the implicate order, governs the visible. Your task is no longer to seek. Your task is to align. Your consciousness is the key. Your emotions are the precise frequency dial, and the ether is the limitless power source waiting for your command. You are not trapped in a single timeline. You are the conductor, the engineer of your own dimensional experience. The blueprint is already complete within your Axion core. The axion shift is the ultimate act of reclaiming your sovereignty. It is the realization that the nine frequency of completion is always available, and the moment you embody that feeling, the universal laws compel the physical world to instantly converge with your internal state. Stop broadcasting the frequency of the past. Start radiating the certainty of the eternal now. The circuit is open. The universe is waiting for you to complete the transmission. To truly solidify this shift, you must commit to mastery. Embrace the nine frequency. Today, in the comments below, declare the single powerful emotion, the feeling of completion, that defines the parallel reality you are now tuning into. Name your frequency. Maintain the broadcast. Practice the principles of resonance and alignment daily. Viewing all external challenges as mere feedback on a system you can instantly retune. If this knowledge has opened your eyes to the dimensional mechanics governing your life, join us. Subscribe to the Axion Shift and activate the bell. By joining this collective, you ensure you receive the advanced codices necessary to maintain your high frequency state and navigate the coming shifts in global consciousness. It is time to step out of the shadows of the old timeline and embrace the power of the axion core. The reality you desire is not coming to you. You are shifting to it. Until the next transmission, keep your frequency high.